The last time Eminem dropped something 4 years apart, it went from some sort of hope to disappointment. And this album was one that I was anticipating, but I didn't want to get my hopes too high for because, again, we've seen this with Eminem where he kind of just disappears for a while and comes back, and then the album he releases is, well, if it's not just mediocre, it's definitely really bad. I will say, though, this is technically a sequel to one of his biggest albums of all time. As with this new record, The Death of Slim Shady Coup de Grace, this kind of works as the sequel to 1999's big breakthrough for Eminem, the Slim Shady LP. However, this time around, it seems as if Eminem was just getting a lot of stuff off his chest, and I still don't necessarily know if he's fully killing off the Slim Shady persona, but it feels like at this point he's just kind of fed up and done with it. I mean, with the time we're in, he just doesn't necessarily have time to be using that persona anymore. Now, granted, through the first 13 tracks, he kind of returns to form. He does the old Slim Shady voice, you know, no accent like on Relapse or anything stupid like that. It's definitely taking you back to Eminem when he would rap as Eminem and Slim Shady, but then Slim Shady gets killed off by the 13th track, and from the rest of the album on, it's kind of Eminem with more, I guess you can say, heartfelt songs, as we'll definitely get to those in a minute. There weren't any tracks that I would say I hated, which is the first time in a while on an Eminem album that we've actually had that happen, because I remember even listening to like the Marshall Mathers LP 2, or even Recovery, and Music to Be Murdered By, and of course Revival, and it's like there was always songs on there where I'm just like, what the fuck was that? Why did he even put this out? But with this one, it felt like all the songs in one way or another just kind of fit the whole album, I guess you can say, except maybe for one, but again, I'll get to that in a minute. There was a couple of tracks, though, that I just kind of found underwhelming. Renaissance kind of kicks the thing off. It's a 1.5-minute intro, Eminem raps over, and it's like okay, but nonetheless, going from that to Habits, it was kind of, it was you know, a slow start. Sometimes albums just have that slow start where you're just kind of not feeling it early on. And then songs like Evil and Road Rage, I guess, were fine, but for the most part, Road Rage had a bad chorus, and Evil was carried by the chorus, so the whole song just wasn't necessarily getting to me. As a matter of fact, the second part of Road Rage is a lot better. But then the rest of the album pops up as my favorite. Trouble was the first song on this record that I remember absolutely liking. Brand New Dance, although it does take shots at Christopher Reeves, who obviously, you don't know, obviously played Superman back in the 70s and 80s, is well known for that. But in the 1990s, he had an accident where he fell off a horse, which left him paralyzed basically throughout his whole entire body until he passed away in 2003 or 4, I believe. They mention it in one of the songs about how he had a song with this Christopher Reeves bar in it while he was writing Encore, and he took it out because that was the year that Christopher Reeves died, and he didn't want to be disrespectful in that sense, kind of showing you that Slim Shady has, you know, a better half. It's not just, oh, I'm gonna say it to say it. He's like, there are boundaries that Slim Shady sometimes won't push. We have the song Lucifer, Antichrist, which again are great and have great choruses. Fuel was one of the ones that surprised me. It became my absolute favorite. Houdini, obviously, one of the 2 songs we heard before the album. It's a lot of fun, takes you back to what Eminem and Slim Shady used to be about. Just nice overall. And then to our surprise, we get Guilty Conscience 2, but it is not Eminem and Dr. Dre kind of going through people's lives and telling them, hey, this is probably the best option for you to do, where Eminem is playing the bad side and Dr. Dre is playing the good side. This is Eminem and Slim Shady kind of talking to each other, going through their own consciousness, and by the end of it, Eminem ends up just killing Slim Shady because, like, you know what? I'm done with you. I don't need you in my life anymore. I can continue on making the music that I want to make without this persona. He is just strictly saying, look, I don't need Slim Shady to be, you know, Eminem anymore. I'm Eminem, that's who I'm gonna be, and now the persona of Slim Shady is officially gone. Head Honcho, at first, opening didn't sound great, but then once the song, you know, went on, I was like, okay, I'm getting down to this a little bit. Then we get to a song, there's actually 2 songs on here that were so personal that I was literally like very close to tearing up. The first one we have is Temporary, and this one features Skylar Grey on the hook, which Eminem with Skylar Grey has been hit or miss over the past couple of years, as he's basically had her on every single one of his albums since the Marshall Mathers LP too, I believe. She might have been on a Song of Recovery, I don't necessarily remember. But the song Temporary is a message to Haley, his daughter, for when Eminem, you know, is no longer with us and he passes away, and is basically saying like, look, I know that I'm your rock and that we have a great relationship, and when I'm gone it's going to hit you the hardest, but just know that you can keep going and you can continue being the great person that you are, because I know you can do it. It's just very motivating, and him playing the audio clips of him and Haley hanging out when she was younger, it just shows you their relationship personally. Even though we know they had a good relationship, just kind of hearing it and getting a taste of it, you're kind of like, wow, I didn't realize it was like this close. You know, and then we kind of go through a couple of other songs that, you know, go back to resembling Eminem in some way, with Bad One, and of course Toby, which features Big Sean and Babytron on it, which this is the song I feel is the oddball on the record. Now I get it, it wasn't originally intended to be an Eminem song. He just kind of went on the track, liked it so much, and asked if it could be on his new album, which obviously here it is. And it's cool in itself, and it's kind of Eminem, you know, dissing this list about, oh, you put these 4 people ahead of me, 4 people that I have just demolished before, and you know that, so to have me at 5 is kind of very disrespectful, while him and Big Sean and Babytron all go, you know, kind of praise each other. So it's just, I guess, a homage to each other, and a diss track to the people that have kind of, I guess, doubted them or hated on them in a way. And then we get to the last track, Somebody Save Me, which has Jelly Roll on it, and it's another emotional fucking roller coaster, because you thought Temporary was emotional and because it was an ode to Haley. Well, this one, it's an ode to all 3 of his daughters. As for those that don't know, Eminem does have his stepdaughter Elena, which obviously is from his wife Kim's first marriage. So stepdaughter technically, but I believe he had legal custody of her, so that makes him the father. And his other daughter Stevie, who I believe was one of his nieces, but when their mom passed away and she was in a bad situation, Eminem legally adopted her, so again, that makes her his daughter. And it was just kind of saying like, I'm sorry for those moments I've missed with you and all this stuff, and I just hope that now that we're here, I don't miss as much as I did before. Because he mentions about missing walking Haley down the aisle, which is weird because I'd seen pictures of him at her wedding, so I don't know, maybe that was just like a ceremony or something rather than the actual wedding. I have no idea. And she also kind of mentions to Stevie, was like, I know I wasn't necessarily there a lot for you, and I know our relationship may be a bit different than it is with Elena and Haley, but just know you're still my daughter, I still love you, and I will still be there for you. It seems like he has a good relationship with all 3 of his daughters. It's just kind of in a different way. Like, Haley's his only biological daughter, but he still loves them all the same. And it finishes out on a great note. And again, like the Skylar Grey hook on Temporary, Jelly Roll just fits so well on the hook here. Plus, again, he has old recordings of him and Haley in the studio together when she was a bit younger as a kid. Actually, this one might not have been in the studio. I think it was like at home. She was like, Dad, come on, come on, get up, it's dinner time. And he's like, yeah, you know, I'll be there in a minute, whatever. I think it was kind of reminiscing to the days back when he was, I guess, touring a lot and on drugs and just kind of all this kind of stuff that went on. I think with this album, Eminem set out to do what he wanted to do when he originally came back in 2009 with Relapse. He wanted to make this personal record, and he still wanted to use Slim Shady in this way, but so much changed that he just tried to change it up a little too much, to a point where things got unbearable. I mean, people will tell you, Relapse has some nice songs with some nice hooks, but that accent he does just gets old after a while. And even on Recovery, when he did get a little personal, he just sounded like a grumpy old man for most of it, and you're just kind of wondering, what happened to, you know, the Slim Shady? Shady. And when we thought, you know, the Marshall Mathers LP 2 was going to be reminiscent of his old stuff, it really wasn't. And even though I thought that was one of his better albums he had had since probably the Eminem show, it still had its flaws. And of course, the albums that have been released since then have definitely had their flaws. But this one by far, and again, I'm not saying this because of nostalgic feel, this is his best he's done in over 20 years. It's just got everything you want, from the Slim Shady stuff to the personal stuff, Eminem, you know, singing from the heart and all this. It comes out so well. It mixes so well together. And if this truly is some sort of farewell album for him, there's rumors that he might be retiring. I don't know until he comes out and actually says that, then I'll believe it. I just think this is him kind of saying, like, look, I'm going to take more of a back seat. I'm still going to be here, but this 4 or 5 year wait for album releases might be the new normal, because I got people whose lives that I need to be in that I've missed so much for, that at this point, music is just kind of second fiddle to him. And if that's where he's at in his career, then that's fine. He's in his 50s now, and sometimes when you get older, you just gotta slow down, and I'm completely okay with it. And with this record, he just got a lot off his chest that I think really hit. And you start to realize where he's been coming from the past 15 years, or even before he was sober, where a lot of this shit was going on, and he just didn't know how to handle all of it, and the fame kind of got to him pretty quickly, and he regrets a lot of stuff that he did in the past. So, surprisingly, with this record, and I am not joking at all, it is a 9 out of 10. It is near perfect, and one of the best I've heard all year, album-wise at least. And for Eminem, the best he's put out in 22 years since the Eminem show. And keep in mind, the Eminem show is my favorite Eminem album, so that's saying a lot there. I'd really like to hear in the comments below what you think of this album, but until then, stay safe out there, and I will catch you all in the next one.